Thank you for coming. I'd like to welcome the viewing and listening public today to the Arthur Abel Complex down in Frederiksted, where we have an important announcement from the Governor of the Virgin Islands of the United States, the Honorable Albert A. Bryan, Jr. We will have the announcement from the Governor, and then we will open up to some questions from the media. We'll try to keep it brief. So without further delay, the Governor of the Virgin Islands of the United States, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, everybody. Just checking. I just want to say it is a pleasure to have all of you here. I was just telling my Director of Communications, I've gotten real popular over the last couple of days. I didn't expect so many people to be present for the press conference, but thank you all for showing up and coming, especially my lovely wife, Yolanda. I didn't expect to see her at all. Talk about some support. First, I want to get out of the way. I know the community, we've been seeing a rash of crime here in the community over the last couple of weeks, and I just want people to know that as an administration, Tregenza and I are very aware of the crime situation, and it has touched home in several ways over the past couple of weeks. Our good friend Kevin, family friend, tragically murdered right after Christmas, and the Brow family, very close family friends as well too, affected by these. But every murder in this community affects us and comes home to us, and it is time that we recognize that it's a commitment from us all in order to solve this. Acting Commissioner Marsh of the police has assured me that there are steps being taken, and we're starting to see action on some of those steps. As recently, we made one arrest in a case, but it has to be more than just the usual stops. It has to be a really comprehensive approach to battling crime in our territory, and there are some immediate things that need to happen that is aimed at getting guns off our streets and keeping them from coming in. And that involves a serious conversation with our federal partners to make sure that we're securing our borders from entry of guns and narcotics, as well as our airports, our seaports. But I just want to say that a lot of the things that we're doing are going to take a little bit of time, but I'm guaranteeing you that you're going to see the results. I look forward to presenting a further plan for you at the State of the Territory address coming up later this month. But we are aware of what's going on, and we've had studies, consent decrees, prayer vigils, a whole lot of things in our community reacting to crime. But it is really time for action. So while we may not have a comment on every single crime and event that happens in our territory, rest assured that we are working together to assemble a team at the police department, as well as a strategic plan to take care of this crime situation, especially the violent crimes, domestic crimes that we're seeing in our community. And I'd just like to say another note. Today is Martin Luther King's birthday, and as he had a dream, so am I announcing part of my dream team today. And I would like to say that this cabinet picking is no easy task. You know, we have a lot of talented individuals in the Virgin Islands. We've had over 1,200 resumes submitted to our website. We had a team that went through those and sorted them out by category, listing them by department and agency. And then they further went on to vet the people who were qualified, to look through those. And then they submitted to me lists of which I vetted and come up with what you're seeing here today. And certainly we have our ways to go still to fill our entire cabinet. But I think that we have the first signs of what's going to be a super team to change course in the Virgin Islands. When we looked at people for these jobs, we wanted to make sure that we had people who were not afraid of change, not afraid of risk, willing to fail if you have to, and be able to get back up and do it again. We were looking for logical thinkers, people who had the education, the experience, but most importantly, a commitment to this community in a way that would make them not only good commissioners, but would be part of a team that would bring these islands forward to where they need to be. It's a little crowded up here, so we do have people who are not here today. And the first person I'd like to talk about is an individual who has made a mark here in the Virgin Islands as a corporal in the police department, went on and did a lot of work with highway safety, and is now a general manager at the Christian State Credit Bureau. She couldn't be here today as she's on vacation. She asked me if she wanted me to come back, and I said, no, enjoy your vacation. So she'll be here at the end of the month to pick up that post, and her name is Barbara McIntosh, and she will be heading the Bureau of Motor Vehicles for the Virgin Islands. Me and Ms. McIntosh and I share a vision of a day when Virgin Islanders, for regular residential drivers will not have to go down to inspection lane and get their cars inspected, and we could do it in a way online, modernize our system so that can be done a lot more rapidly. So congratulations to Director nominee Barbara McIntosh. Over the last couple of years, we've seen the National Guard go through a lot of different changes, and some low points, maybe some necessary and maybe some not so necessary. But there's been a loss in the Guard among the last couple of years of young recruits and people's unwillingness to join the ranks of our National Guard and support them because of the reputation that the Guard has garnered over the last couple years. What we try to do is we look at who is that fresh face that is going to come and bring back that pride into the Guard that we know, and encourage young Virgin Islanders to sign up for our National Guard. And we were fortunate to have a Virgin Islander, a Crucian from Frederickstead, come back to help us through our rough times in the National Guard. And we are so proud today to introduce Colonel Cujo Knox Limbacher. He's had prior experience working in the Pentagon. He's a War College graduate, has done extensive work in various departments of the Army. And I just want to tell you, he's a personnel risk professional that grew up in St. Croix, went away, made good for himself, and now we got him home with us here, hopefully for 8 years. Colonel Knox Cujo, where is he?
Yes, sir.
There you are. When we looked to tourism, we were, we know the Virgin Islands is nice, but it's time for a new voice for our tourism product. And we thank Commissioner Doty for the work she did over the years. But one of the things that we ran on and we want to do is we want to retain all of our talent. So even as you see commissioners leave posts, we're hoping that they stick around, the good ones that is, and contribute to the Virgin Islands in different ways. Our commissioner designee for the Department of Tourism is Mr. Joe Bochelta. You come to this one. Mr. Bochelta is no stranger to leadership roles. He served in leadership capacities at the University of the Virgin Islands, the Government Employees Retirement System, WAPA, and most recently as the head of WICO. While he was there, he was successful in floating up to $69 million in bonds for capital projects. He did a stellar job there. We feel that Mr. Bochelta's intimate knowledge of the industry of cruise ships, on the cruise industry specifically, and a broader knowledge of Virgin Islands economy is going to really catapult him into a place. He has some fantastic ideas about how we consolidate our cruise message and our cruise marketing in order that we have one port in the Virgin Islands, one port voice in the Virgin Islands, negotiating not only for WICO or the Port Authority, but for Frederickstead as well. So when we go to market, we know what we're getting. 3 for 1. So we look forward to great things from Mr. Bochelta. We are glad that he has volunteered to give his public service to the Department of Tourism, and we'll see how long we could keep him there, right?
Yeah. I'm at agent.
Congratulations. This other gentleman here is funny how life in the Virgin Islands is so circular. I grew up next door to him in St. Thomas as a young man. He was I was friends with his older brother. Our families both shared 4 boys in common. Both of our fathers were very close to, but he's not up here because he's a good, close friend, a family of mine. He's up here because he has extensive knowledge in finances and accounting. He was in the States, was recruited back to the Virgin Islands, did a stint at the Innovative, now VIA, as the treasurer there, and most recently at International Capital Management Company, where he excelled as well. And we are fortunate enough to have lured him into the Virgin Islands government to serve as our finance commissioner, Mr. Kirk Calwood. Next, we have a young lady that is no stranger. You already know who it is because only one of here. Right? She's no stranger to the healthcare industry. She has served in various capacities and now is a operating manager and a consultant with acute care. But we know her more familiarly for her work with the Juan F. Louis Hospital, where she served as a vice president of nursing coordination and on various roles. She has served the community over the last 20 years after she returned home from the States. And we're happy to have Ms. Justa Tita Encarnacion as our new Commissioner of Health. This gentleman, I like to liken him to myself because, you know, when I went to labor, it was never a big thing. Nobody ever wants to go to the labor department, right? But when I went there, you know, I always used to tell the governor at that time, John DeYoung, that I sew fine silk garments out of crocus bag for him. And this gentleman here has truly done that with his department over the last 4 years. I always met him. He had the radio show before mine on The Vibe, and I was always impressed with the amount of information he had. When the Governor Mapp lost the election, one of my closest friends reached out to me who suffered from PTSD and told me that whatever I do, I must make sure that I keep Patrick Farrell because he's doing so much for the veterans. He had helped him personally through a very rough time in his life and continuously checks on him. And those are the kind of people we want in service. His nickname is Soldier for a good reason. Commissioner, Designee Director Farrell, Patrick Farrell, welcome to the team. This young man, you know, one of the things is a bad habit from Department of Labor, being a Commissioner of Labor, is that you always scout talent. And I was immediately impressed with him from the moment I met him. And when I mentioned to Carl Knight, who's my Chief of Staff, who my pick was, he was absolutely. There was never even a question about it for the Director of the Energy Office. He was raised in St. Croix. He's a Good Hope School graduate. He went to Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He has a Master of Science degree in Energy Systems from Northeastern in Boston, Massachusetts. A true son of the soil, one I am extremely proud of. Every time I see his mother, I just like, I am so proud of this young man. Mr. Kyle Fleming, he will be the new Director of the Energy Office. Now, this gentleman I have known for a long time, politically as well as professionally. He is a stalwart of education. Over 27 plus years, he served as a superintendent of education. He's bargaining agreements, labor relations. Every time I had a problem with a St. Croix school or anything I need to get, I would always call upon him. It was a funny conversation that we had the other day because he has such a passion for education. But I told him, you know, it's time for a different role. It's time to do something that would reestablish you in a different genre with the same type of background. And he looked at me quizzically when I asked him to do this, but I think he's going to do real well as we work to really connect our departments so that they work in clusters. So I see workforce development as something that has to not only be an initiative of education and the university, but certainly labor. So I'd like to introduce to you the designee for the Department of Labor, Commissioner Designee Gary Malloy. I'm already confirming. Y'all were waiting to hear education, huh? Change course now. This gentleman, when I interviewed him, I've known him for a couple of years, but when I interviewed him for the job, I often wondered why he was not picked sooner. He has an extensive knowledge of DPNR, its inner workings, its departments, history, coastal zone management, way more qualified, but I figure the reason is that he's a victim of his youth. Sometimes when you look young, you are a victim to that. People think that you're too young for the job. Well, I'm gonna paint his hair gray and get him going on this so he could look the wisdom of his years. He has also been acting commissioner many times and was appointed director at CBZM in 2018, has been the director there. I'd like to introduce you to Commissioner Designee of DPNR, Mr. J.P. Oriole. This gentleman has been in Public Works now for 4 years. Well, actually not 4, because we had a designee before him for about 2.5 years. 1 year. And if you notice, I mean, all during the election, you know, if I could have ate his lunch and buried him somewhere, I would have, because every time I saw a new road paved or something painted, I was like, damn, petty. He did a really good job, and I think that at Public Works we have good momentum in terms of getting the islands to where it needs to be. We finally got contracts going and things going in the right way. And as I promised, we're going to stop, start, and continue, and different things. And this is one of the things that we want to continue. I'm looking to see more improvements in terms of our downtown districts, in terms of cleanliness, getting our stoplights out, our street signs back. And to lead this charge, I'm going to ask Mr. Nelson Petty to do that for me as Commissioner of Public Works. Congratulations. Thanks for having me on board. I wish they were walking now. Who I have left? I got to look around. Okay, I knew I have left. Anthony Thomas. This is you know, like I said, I always scout talent. And as the Chief of Staff in Education, I was always impressed by his command of the Education Department, what was going on, the finances. Every time there was a question to ask the commissioner, I always kind of gave the nod and looked back, whether it was in private or in public sessions. And I said, this guy is impressive. And he, you know, and when I had a conversation with him, his passion, of course, was education. He's been there for 4 years. But he shared with me that he had a long history in procurement. Our procurement in the government of the Virgin Islands is probably the #1 reason why a lot of the grants are not doing well. And it's more of a victim of the system than the people who are running it. What we need to do in terms of our central government and getting it to work properly is to have a procurement that is modernized, definitely electronic, and able to get contracts through on a timely basis. And I'm talking about timely to me is 3 weeks, not 3 years. So all of our contracts, we're looking for being able to track them electronically, knowing where they are and making sure that they get processed within a reasonable amount of time so we don't lose grant funding, so we get people working in the Virgin Islands and we get our tax collected on some of the private contracts that are out there. So I would like to welcome my designee, your designee, to the Property and Procurement Commissioner, Mr. Anthony Thomas. Welcome aboard. Last but not least, and when I did the interview, he reminded me that when he came home, he had an extensive background in accounting and training. And when I called him for the interview and offered him the job, he said, "We have come full circle." And I said, "Huh? What do you mean?" He said, "Don't you remember when I came home, your office was the first office I came to as Department of Labor Commissioner. I asked for a meeting for you. And in the meeting, you called then Commissioner Claudette Anderson, Director Claudette Anderson at IRB, and she hired me like the next day." And I said, wow, I didn't even remember that. But he is a CPA with an extensive background in tax. He has worked at IRB as well as a number of institutions in the States. He is operating his own practice now here in St. Croix, so he may take a minute to wind down before he starts at the Bureau of Internal Revenue. But he is an awesome person, human being, and a great pick, Mr. Joel Lee, for Director of the IRB. You know, and I didn't miss anybody, right? Right? No. All right, I'm good. Before I stop and open it up for questions, I'm getting a lot of questions about terminations. One of the things that we're trying to do, we respect and honor and thank those people that have served before in public service at commissioner and assistant commissioner levels and in the exempt service. We sincerely thank them for their service. I've spoken to a lot of these individuals personally to assure them that while they may be leaving their posts, there are opportunities here in the government for them and in the private sector, especially in the financial roles. We have so much work to do and we need the talent. So as they leave their office, they took these jobs understanding that they are 4-year or they're 8-year stints. Everything is for a time, everything's for seasons, and the seasons has changed. And while we are retaining some of the administration, we definitely looking for those people who will embrace the new administration, innovation, a chance for change, an ability to work together in a new team and make sure that we get this Virgin Islands where it needs to be. So anything I can do to help them have a soft landing and be a contribution to the Virgin Islands, and especially to keep them home, I'm willing to do that. So I'll open the floor to any questions, and I thank you for coming today. The other thing I would like to do before, I didn't see, I should have put him up here next to me. I had a pet peeve about the Lieutenant Governor standing up here next to me saying nothing, but I would like to acknowledge that my Lieutenant Governor, your Lieutenant Governor, Tregenza Roach, the Honorable, is here with us today. Questions from the press?
Yes. Good day, Governor.
Good day.
Tom Ader, St. Croix Avis. You mentioned that not all of your nominees are here because of today, and you mentioned one as Barbara McIntosh,
yes,
nominee to be director of the BNV.
Yes.
Are there any others who are not here today?
No, those are all the nominees that we're naming at this time. We do have some other selections that we can't name at this time because of business interests and people that need to be notified in order for us to come public with them. It may take us within the 90 days to name everyone, because some people, even though they're ready to come on board, they have other commitments that will keep them working or otherwise occupied for some time. And we don't want to announce people before really they're ready to come on too much advance.
As a follow-up, do you have a timeline? When can we expect you to announce the additional cabinet members?
Within 90 days, we should have 100% of the cabinet named.
And forgive me, is the 90-day timeline in the
January 7th? No, it's not it's not coded anywhere. We just have a lot of work to do. My chief of staff keeps telling me, he's like, "What's the rush?" I'm like, "My clock is ticking. I'm already 8 days into my administration. Time is running out."
I mean, did you give yourself the 90-day deadline?
Yeah, that's the patient me.
Okay.
Susan Ellis with the VI Source. Governor, now that you've picked a lot of your team members, which departments are you challenging with priorities at this time?
Well, I think all of the departments are being challenged with priorities, but right now, the main thing for me is to stabilize leadership and then stabilize the department. So having people that are out of the acting role, who are more secure in their position and are able to make decisions that will create stability and continuity. I don't want, we are already in a precarious situation because we have not fully recovered from the storm. Because of all of the recovery efforts, a lot of the departments have not been able to do the rudimentary basic services in the way that they've delivered them in the past. So the first priority is to returning to that. Our schools are still not together. We have problems with government employees in moldy situations. Some people are in offices dislocated from their supervision. We still have people working in tents. So we got a lot to do to kind of stabilize and make sure that we're providing the services to the public that is demanded of us by the code.
Okay, and one other quick question. The commissioners you haven't named, will the former administrations of commissioners stay in place until you do? Or will they be acting? Or?
I made a commitment, and not necessarily that we're going to be eliminating all of the people that we have not named, but I made a commitment to my team that I would not be removing people if I didn't really have a replacement in sight, unless I felt that that situation needs to be handled immediately because of some other reason. So.
Good afternoon, Brian O'Connor, Virgin Islands Daily News. Are we looking also at redistributing or altering salaries for commissioners as part of these appointments?
I made a commitment during the campaign that I would not be raising anybody's salary. I'm trying to pay people within the pay scales that were established by the previous administration.
And then one pending issue, particularly for the Editor General nominee, if I could. We heard word of a report related to, for lack of a better word, sexual harassment in the workplace at the National Guard. Are you guys committing to making that public today?
I don't think he would be prepared to answer that question as he just was named today. Give him 5 minutes. We're looking forward to getting him there and getting him settled, and then I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any of your questions in that regard.
And then one final question. You mentioned that tourism would be negotiating on behalf of 3 different entities.
That is the plan going forward. We have not formally established that, but that is the direction in which we are heading.
Okay. And would it be tourism at the front in association with the Port Authority in Waco? Can you give us an idea how that tripartite structure would work in negotiations?
Yeah, that's a tricky part that we're working out now. What we foresee is that we're going to put the best foot forward when we get that team together. The person who is better equipped to do it will be doing the negotiations, along with the support and help of the governor.